Welcome to probateweekly.com. I'm Bill Gross at Bill Gross Probate on social media, or billgrossprobate.com is our website with all our links. And we do this every Thursday. I record live on a Zoom call at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 noon Eastern time. And then we broadcast this through various social media. I'm a real estate broker in LA, California. And the goal of this is a couplefold. One, to educate myself and all of us together on being better at our business, whether we're a real estate agent or an attorney in the probate real estate space. We want to learn how to be more effective, creating more value for our customers, the way we create more revenue for ourselves. Second, networking, meeting each other, sharing ideas, sharing business. And as I build a national platform of real estate agents, we're in the probate space. We want to do that as well. And then third, hear from other successful business people, how they're building their business, and we can learn from them. So on today's episode, we're going to learn from a vendor, somebody who I describe as they're not a realtor, they're not an attorney, but somebody who services the same business we do, and in many ways is attacking some of the same market we are, to learn how they do it successfully, how we can work with them and their like, as well as copy their best practices and bring that to our business. So you're going to learn a lot about how to build your business. These are some of the principles I've used. And Phil in particular, this is his second time on. He gets the very valued second time guest cup for the Probate Weekly. We'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, just a couple highlights though before we jump into the details of the program. I'm back from the Jewish holidays, and I just want to say that I've been off a bit. Being a religious Jew, we've had literally off 6 working days of about a 3-week period. So it's kind of crazy how much time I've had off from the business. But I do want to say that as a result, I think I've come back more focused and clear on my vision of where I want to build my business and how I'd like to include you in that path. And so forgive me for the time off. We did a couple of pre-records. I thought I'd be doing this one while traveling, but we got back in time. And so thank you for your patience during the last couple of weeks. Look forward to adding some great episodes and working together going forward. Second, I just got back from the EXP Con. I'm with the EXP Realty. We had our national convention in Miami Beach, Florida. It was a lot of fun. And I'm still crystallizing my thoughts and takeaways from that. But one of the things that I want to share and hopefully will come across today is the importance of working with other people, leveraging systems, procedures, and people in order to build a business rather than just chasing commission checks. And so I think you're going to see more and more of that as you go forward on how we can work together and leverage. And I want to share that with you. And then the other big news is, of course, the Dodgers won the World Series last night, beating the hated Yankees. Everybody hates the Yankees other than Yankee fans. And the thing that struck me, I've watched baseball, my whole life as a kid. And I want to say one of the things that really struck me about that team in particular, just it was striking. And I see this message regularly. I'm just sorry, I forgot to turn my phone on to mute. I'm doing that here as we talk. What struck me is how they work as a team. They seem to take more pride in each other's success and their own individual success, knowing that's the goal. And I think that's true for all of us. And the grit, how even New York, while they were down 3-0, came back and won a game, and that was very motivating. And then the Dodgers last night being down 5-0 in the 5th inning, coming back, tying the game, and winning the game. And I think that's a lesson for all of us that if you want to be a champion, you can't give up. You got to keep grinding. So hopefully we'll all do that. Okay, so our guest today, Phil Pavarini Jr., is an expert in probate bonds. Virtually every one of our customers has to get a probate bond. Virtually every one of the attorneys we work with has to answer the question, where am I get the bond from? They either defer to somebody else or make that decision. And Phil is one of those people who makes that, is the solution to people based in Ohio, I believe. Yes, in Cleveland, Ohio, but also servicing markets across the country. Phil's been here before. Phil, thank you so much for coming back to Probate Weekly.
Well, thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate you having me back on. Excited to be here.
So when you were a young kid, while the rest of us were playing G.I. Joes and playing football, were you off playing the probate bond expert, or how'd you get in this business?
Well, I started in surety bonds in particular as I was doing surety bail bonds, which is definitely a different market than probate. That's where it led me here, is working with many attorneys and legal professionals doing surety bonds and private investigations. And here I am today, and all we pretty much do is the probate end of it. We also do some other surety bonds, but primarily probate related.
So if an 8-year-old child came up to you and said, what is a probate bond? How would you answer them?
Well, it's essentially, in a nutshell, I describe it as a insurance company is basically co-signing to guarantee whatever obligations your principal or your fiduciary has to the estate. So that's in a nutshell, that's what's happening is in the instance of a claim with a surety bond, the insurance company is not just going to pay that; they're going to pay it, and then they're going to come back after the fiduciary. So it's essentially a cosigner in a matter of speaking.
And I think this is a misnomer. The way it's not so clearly understood because bonds are required. And I think we always resist things required. But one reason why it's required is the judge, in giving authority to somebody, is now comfortable that somebody's insuring in case there's claims. But as a fiduciary, you also are insured against things that may happen. As long as you're not frauding the court, you're insured against things that may happen as well, shortages or problems or whatever, based on the type of bond that you get, correct?
Well, you're not exactly insured, and it's not for anything. It's only when the court determines that bond is payable due to some violation or some malfeasance, or the court has to order that is
Right.
number one. And number two, it's definitely not insurance. So if there is anything paid out on that bond, the bonding company is going to come back after the principal to recover those losses. So that's an important distinction is there is no um, just there are no bond claims that are just paid and not recovered.
Uh-huh. So give me an example or two of what are bond claims that typically get issued and are approved and or that the money is reclaimed.
Sure. Well, a few great examples actually recently, and more often, we're running into families with some sort of disputes where multiple fiduciaries attempt to apply for that. Multiple fiduciaries attempt to apply for that bond, and there may be disputes. One fiduciary may have had access to bank accounts, and they go ahead and spend that money, and sometimes it's considerable amounts, and they could even spend it in good faith with the assumption that that expenditure is permitted, and it may end up not being permitted. So that bond is could become payable by the court. So all the time we run into instances where, especially with folks that don't have an attorney, they say, "Well, I don't have an attorney. It's a small bond amount. Why can't you approve the bond?" And our best explanation is that the layperson generally is not going to be familiar with all the intricacies of what's allowed, what needs court approval, what doesn't, and that sort of thing. So, all the time we have folks that, are in that situation. The court orders the bond to be paid, and then everyone's in a pickle. So we try to avoid that.
Can you give me an example of one or two of those types of situations? Somebody pay, as a fiduciary makes what they think is a reasonable judgment, but turns out the court says, no, 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 you should have spent money on that.
Um, I personally, as the agent, I'm not involved with a whole lot of claims
Okay,
as far as when there's an issue that comes up that gets reported to the claims department.
right.
And the only time I generally get involved is when we look at our loss reports, or if a customer needs assistance with something, they'll reach out to me, and then I'll generally just redirect them back to someone in the claims area.
Got it.
Um, but as far as the common claims are, another area is a lot of times is in guardianships where we have someone that may have had a power of attorney, and especially then they may be making expenditures that might now need court approval,
Right.
where maybe they were managing that estate as a guardian for 10 years, and then all of a sudden or as a power of attorney for 10 years, and then it turns into a guardianship, and they continue writing those expenses,
Right.
and the attorney says, hold on, you need to get approval for that, or that sort of thing.
In general, I act as a fiduciary for some estates recently on a couple, and I can't give legal advice, but business advice I would always give somebody is, if you're spending money on behalf of an estate, assuming it'll be approved, you better be willing to eat that money. If not, I mean, if you're protecting assets that you think in the long run are important, that's great. But things like changing locks, I've done without knowing if I'm get approved or not, but you really have to be very careful about spending money on behalf of somebody else, because especially if there's other parties, other heirs who object, sometimes they just want the cash and they can't see spending money on anything. And guardianship's another example where constantly ask for receipts of all those lunches they took the kid on, and gee, you spent too much, or gee, how do they order 3/4 pounders? The kid's only 12 years old. And, I've seen those arguments in court. And they become very expensive battles. So, okay, good. So let's talk about one of the basic parts is that the bond is many times required in order to get the letters of authority to get the probate process started. And this is often a hangup because people feel like they filed a petition, at least in California, and they submit it, and that might be done right away, or it might take several iterations and court hearings and months, and they get approved in court. Just, okay, I'll approve it, subject to a $20,000 minimum bond or $1 million bond or whatever the assets are. And the reaction of the customer is always, bond? I know nothing about a bond, and they have to begin the process. So let's talk about, most commonly, when do you get involved in the bond application process? At what stage is the customer when somebody's reaching out to you?
And that's going to vary based on jurisdiction. In a lot of respects, some courts require a bond before a case is filed. Other courts will only accept it after the case is filed and the bond ordered. A lot of times we run into folks who they call us where they've been self-administering an estate. The court has allowed them to file the estate, and then they come to us as the bonds people. And that's when we get them, is after the case has been filed, the bond has already been ordered. And what we run into is, unfortunately, we have to tell the majority of folks that, your next step is to get an attorney rather than the bond. So, it varies based on that time spectrum when we get them in the door as far as when we're involved. So a lot of times we'll just defer them to an attorney and wait to apply for that bond until they've secured the attorney.
What's the time period from when somebody applies for a bond to get it? How long does it take to actually get the bond issued?
Well, that's one of the things I ran out to grab my notes for, Bill, is we've got some exciting new products. I have 3 different storefronts, so to speak, for bonds, and each one has a little bit different of an offering, so we can customize clients' bonding needs. On one of those platforms, we can do instant issue estate bonds now. So in certain courts, if the applicant qualifies, so there are requirements there to get the instant issue. If it's under a certain dollar amount, their credit score is above a certain amount, then they're able to apply for that bond, pay for the bond, and immediately get the bond for printing. So that's, the quickest we can do it is as fast as you can type in an application.
Wow.
So, and that's also based on state. So that is primarily in right now in our in-house states, which are Arizona, Florida, Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. So out of those 5 states, we're doing a pilot project and can do those instant bonds.
So just stop for a second. For those, just help me, the audience here. If you're a real estate agent in those states, he just told you that they can get a bond instantly versus virtually every other company, and even Phil, up until this time with this product, a bond would take at a minimum. They fill an application, the customer sends it in, somebody has to review it. In my experience, it was always a couple days minimum, 2 or 3 days by the time you got the whole thing done, versus somebody highly motivated can get it done right away. And so this is the kind of thing that you can bring to your attorneys, you can bring to your fiduciaries, you can ask them, have they applied for a bond? And they'll go, oh yeah, I applied, and they want this, they want that. And again, he mentioned certain credit requirements, certain dollar amounts. So you would be knowledgeable about this product. Now, this isn't, I'm in California, so it doesn't really apply directly to me. But if you're in those states he mentioned, and again, it was Texas, Florida, Arizona, Ohio, and where's your 5th state, Phil?
Oh, Bill, let me, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Bill, but
Oh,
I just wanted to kind of off topic for 30 seconds here, if that's
yes.
okay.
Yeah, sure.
In my announcing this event, I let everyone know I was going to buy them lunch. So, and I told them after 15 minutes. So this is the 15-minute mark. I just wanted to tell everyone how you can get that. And you can go to any of our websites and send us a message. In the message content, just put free lunch. Send that to us, and the first 20 folks that send that to me within the next hour, we'll send them a gift card for lunch. So
Wow.
that's my only diversion real quick, Bill, just because I said after 15 minutes.
Oh,
And
okay. No problem.
yeah,
So the
if
5
folks
states
want
are
a free,
Free
Yeah,
lunch. And then, so how would you get that again? Is if you go to any of the websites, there's a QR code there. Or if you go to the website, we talked about the website being
probate court bond.
probatecourtbond.com. And if
Right.
you go there and message you, put in the word free lunch, they'll get a free. So there is a free lunch. I didn't know there was such a
It's a
thing as a
free
free
lunch.
lunch.
Absolutely. What'll happen is you get a gift card in the email within a day or two. But yes, sir. But back to the states. We do in-house. We do Arizona, Florida, Indiana,
Indiana,
Michigan, Ohio. Yeah,
Michigan,
we're
Ohio.
looking at Texas, but for right now, it's those five.
And Michigan is another big state. So any of you in those 5 states, I would learn this product backwards and forwards. I mean, I'm not in those 5 states, but I want to promote that to you as a competitive, compelling advantage. What an excuse to call your local attorney and say, hey, do you ever have customers who have difficulty getting bonds? Or are you in a rush to get a bond right away? And look, if they're active, they may say yes. They might just appreciate hearing from you the information. It's a fantastic tool. So the bond process can be as quickly as online in other states, or the people who don't meet the credit. And that's a very common thing in probate, that an heir doesn't, there might be an estate worth $1 million, but the heir just, doesn't have, a nickel, and maybe have bad credit, or maybe has been living in the house for free and never really launched. So for people with other than that, what's the process look like, and when do they typically get in touch with you to apply for a bond?
Sure. And in other states and in cases where we don't do the instant bond program, we are now able to issue bonds in all 50 states. So we have agreements with other licensed agents in all states. And whether it's handled in-house within our agency or we submit that to an agent licensed in those areas, typically we'll have a reply and acknowledgement to applications within a couple of hours. And if everything checks out, there are no underwriting flags. We usually have that bond issued and sent to them either by email or overnight, however they request that bond, usually within 24 hours or less, and often within a couple of hours. So you mentioned a couple of days earlier. A couple of days is really an very unusual for our agency, unless there's some really strange issues or underwriting issues. A couple of days is like worst case for us.
In California, I gotta tell you, there's a bond company that really dominates LA and I think Orange County. And I think it goes back to the days, well, a number of reasons why. They do a lot of marketing, and it goes back to the days when everybody went to court every day and they met people, created relationships, and did a good job. I mean, they really did a good job and had good sales reps. But as a result, I feel like their service is just a notch below, keeping up with what the best practices are. And so again, I've used that to my advantage to say to a trainee, we don't need to wait 2 or 3 days. There's another vendor I use besides Phil, because they can do the California in-house. But again, I think for all of you, you should all find the right bond tool for that proposal and find some advantage to working with them. I've sold that bond company that I would call inferior service in a case where I needed a large bond for somebody who was very credit worthy. And because I knew the relationship with the bank they worked with, and were able to get the bond approved that otherwise might not have been. So again, this is a tool in your toolbox for you to use that's appropriate for your customers and your attorneys. I'm not saying it's one size fits all. I'm not an affiliate of Phil's in any way. I'm not getting any money for this. I just really want to myself learn the tools, learn from him, and share with you guys the opportunities that we have in front of us. So the bond is, it seems to me most commonly the bond's issued for a year and then gets renewed. Is that the standard practice? And then the entire fee, if the probate goes 13 months, it becomes a 2-year bond. Is that common practice, or is that just particular companies or particular underwriters?
Well, with most bonds, they all renew annually until the court discharges that bond. So that's most bonds. We do have a few companies with a few offerings for minimum penalty bonds that are one-time payment. And those are an excellent resource for attorneys that might be prosecuting a wrongful death case. A lot of times they'll have to file a probate in order to prosecute that wrongful death.
Right.
Well, that could go on for multiple years. If they could
Right.
get the court to accept that minimum bond, it's only a one-time. So that
Got
is,
it.
another option that saves a whole lot of money if if the anticipated settlement and you try to bond, $2 million because that's what your anticipated settlement is, you could be saving, thousands of dollars and just getting that minimum penalty bond which is a one-time payment until the court orders a higher bond. So,
And that's an interesting point you make. Again, just to kind of put in context for real estate agents listening online, looking to expand their business with attorneys, is that there's
or
multiple attorneys that kind of play in the bond space backwards. And one is wrongful death or any kind of civil attorney, because the client may have died or may have been alive when they started and died during the course of the legal matter. And so while they're not a probate attorney, now they are suing on behalf of an estate. Well, the estate only exists if you file and get court approval to manage the estate. And so this is another reason why for any real estate agent to share this good information with your COI, your center of influence, which includes multiple types of attorneys that will help you stand out as an expert. That's why learning these things are so important. So some bond products, and I say the standard probate bond seems to renew every year. So you want to pay attention if your probate is supposed to close within a year, and it's going to go 14 months, it's going to cost them some extra money. And all the reason why you want to, shorten the time period if you can, but let your customer know ahead of time that process exists. The paying of the bond is in advance of the bond being issued, right? You don't get the bond unless you make the payment. So let's talk a little bit about how would somebody know what the cost is of a bond? I know you represent multiple lines and shop therefore for a competitive product. How would a consumer or an attorney or a fiduciary know they're getting a good price on the bond, and how can they budget that before the process starts?
well, a couple things to mention to you, Bill, is the first, as you mentioned, if the case goes 14 months. Another important benefit that we do have a few bonding companies that gives up to a 60-day grace period. So that means even if the bond is discharged, as long as it's within 14, not 12 months, but if they give you an extra 60 days, there's zero due on that extra 60 days. There's no renewal due. And that's
Nice.
really a big cost savings. Again, if you have a large bond, it's a $2 million bond and it could be, another $1,500. Well, just
Right.
get it discharged within that 60 days and we'll forgive the entire bond amount.
Right.
Um, and what was your question there, Bill? I'm sorry.
How would one understand what the price is going to be? Is there an estimating tool, or do you have a general rule of thumb on the cost of bonds, or how does that work?
Sure, and we have over 16 different bonding companies' rate sheets. So some attorneys or clients will call and they'll assume there's a certain percentage, and it really isn't that simple across the board because every company they have a tiered system of percentages. So they might charge a different rate from 100,000 to 500,000, and then a different rate in several tiers. Um, to address that, if anybody ever gets a bond and applies on our probate court bond website, those bonds are personally underwritten either by myself or one of our other agents, and we always start with the lowest cost company. So a lot of agencies we see, they don't do that. They start with whatever is easiest for them to process or all sorts of other criteria. But we always start with the lowest price company based on the application. And that's where we get into underwriter and agent familiarity with the different bonding companies. Um, some companies don't like to see folks with felonies. Others are a little more lax on credit, disputes. There's a whole plethora of things that you just have to know going into it, who's going to accept what. And at the end of the day, if an attorney needs a price, they're welcome to either call us or send us an email, and we'll give them a range of prices, usually within a few minutes.
I put the website link into the chat box as well. And I think that this is, again, an opportunity that he just extended. You can contact him for a quote on a bond price. And this is the case where if you're talking to a fiduciary or an attorney, you might just ask, do they feel like they're getting good pricing on their probate bonds? And what if I could save you a couple $100? Would that be important to you? And so just by getting knowing there's a second quote, because I think most attorneys only know of one bond company, the one that somebody referred them to, or the one that they saw in court back pre-COVID when they went to court every day here in LA. And having a second chance, you're talking about a bond. Well, let me ask you this. In your business, are you able to share what's your average bond amount and what's the average annual premium for a bond? Just as a ballpark number, what are we talking about?
Well, that's really hard to say because that's so dependent on the case. So,
Sure,
it's like asking someone what your electric cost is every month. I don't know if you keep your thermostat on 60 or 85.
sure.
Um, But our minimum penalty bonds are probably by far at least half more of our bonds, and those start at $100. They typically go up to 40,000 in penalty. And that's just by the nature of many cases just require a minimum bond,
Right,
and there may not be any liquid assets. But
right.
bond prices go up from there, and we have few insurance companies are the rates. I'm surprised at how low their rates are now. We just did a 1.5 million bond, and it was I don't remember the specific fee, but it was at least 40% lower cost than our next lowest company. So there, that's also that is comes into play.
But it can add up. It can be hundreds of dollars. It could be a couple $1,000s. And I think if you can save $300, $400, as a real estate agent, I work with an escrow company that saves my seller, $500 here, and a bond company, a couple $100 here, and a couple $100. That's what our job is, to create value for our customers. And it's not just the lower price. It's hopefully lower price for the same or superior service and a personal connection. And I do know that most attorneys have never talked to the bond company. They have some person and an email they send their request to, and they just assume it comes back. You're giving them a chance to save some money, hopefully, and tailor the bond to the customer in a way that makes a lot of sense. Hey, we are doing this live on Zoom. For those of you who are on, you're welcome to ask questions. I know we got one question, which was the URL of Phil's company, and it's probatecourtbond.com. Probatecourtbond.com, and that's in the chat box. And you can go on there and you can do the application online for the auto apply bonds. If you're in the States that he does that, you also can reach out to him and send him an email request for a quote on a bond, and he's more glad to do that as well. If you have other questions, and then when we rebroadcast this onto LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, you're welcome to ask questions. I check those as well regularly, and we'll come back with any questions. Just a little bit of housekeeping real quick, so I kind of catch us up on where we are. This is probateweekly.com. We do this every Thursday at 9 a.m. We do it live on Zoom call. So if you register at probateweekly.com, put your email address in, you'll get a link with the Zoom contact. And if you scroll down, you can also subscribe to us or hear us on the various audio versions, Spotify, Apple, and such. And then if you like the video version, YouTube, we can get all the past episodes here by clicking on the YouTube link. We continue the conversation on Facebook at Probate Weekly. It's a group we have in Facebook with a couple thousand real estate agents. Feel free to go there and post your content. It's one way to get more views and likes is to go in. Mostly this is mine. By office, here go. Reen Kessler puts his probate help desk videos in there. And here is Bernie Steffen, who does his. As his video was a great video, by the way. And he has a great website for resources, by the way. So great resources if you want to learn, great resources if you want to share your business. I also am really excited to share that I am on now KGCI Real Estate on the Air. K is the kind of the traditional real estate call letter for west of the Mississippi versus east, I think was W. And GCI, gross commission income, obviously is an allusion to realtors making more money. This is a 24/7 online radio station. I'm on once a week on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock, but there's great content. It's the kind of thing I play at my desk to listen to motivation and insights on real estate, so feel free to join in there. Our guest today is, again, Phil Pavarini Jr., who is a probate and surety bond expert and has an insurance company. More importantly, you can see him in his business at probatecourtbond.com. He really is a marketing genius. And so I'm really excited to have him on, share kind of his mindset and how he approaches these things and can help us. So let's talk a little bit, Phil, if we can kind of pivot a little bit about from what probate bonds are. And, one thing about you that has always impressed me is you're always doing something of marketing. I think that, QR code up there, you got the freelance promo. I know you're always changing the websites and the domain names and such. Kind of give me an overview. How do you approach the marketing part of your business?
I think the first thing folks need to realize is you have to be hungry. So if you're doing good and you're busy and you have some extra time, I don't have a whole lot of hobbies. I like to try to increase productivity, and I almost call it a shotgun approach, where I try to do as many different marketing things as we can, and hopefully enough of it sticks that someday, whenever you see some of that slow down or stop, I made it big. So that's what I think happened. Some of these other companies or agencies that might not give as high of service or personal service, or a lot of agencies won't necessarily put a bond with the lowest price or whatever it is, just because they don't need to. they have enough business coming in the door that they could really, and not for better or worse, it doesn't matter if they give that extra 10 minutes of attention. So, as long as I'm in business, I'm here to help folks. And even to my own detriment, I mean, on a regular basis, I try to tell folks, let's get you approved for 100,000 bond, but let's issue it for the 20, just so you pay the flat rate until the court orders it higher. And then, we know that you're approved for the higher amount. You don't have to worry about that. But, we're going to save you money on the front end. So the best I can tell you, Bill, is I just try to approach everything we do as if I was the customer. I've been on that customer end along a lot of times, and it's really shocking to see how many businesses now in all industries just don't seem to know right from wrong anymore, for a lack of a better way to describe things. So in my opinion, I try to reflect that and just show that I care about your business, and I care about each individual when they call me, as if they were my own family, that was looking for a bond. And anymore, it's really far in between where I run across other vendors in any industry like that. So yeah, I do my best and hope for the best.
It's funny you say that, because I feel the same way. And about you, I mean, I get that about you, and that's what attracted me from the beginning. And even though, we haven't done a lot of business together, I've certainly learned a lot from you, and I really do try to pay attention to what you do to learn and improve my business. There's a saying I've always gone by, which is hungry dogs hunt best. And I think that when when you really love the business, you want to do well, not because you need it to pay your rent or for food, but you do it because you just love the hunt. You love the competition. You love helping people. You're going to do a better job. And I think that's reflected in your marketing efforts and activities. So talk a little bit about, do you work with any particular real estate agents? Are there people who bring you business that are realtors? And if no, why do you think that is? I mean, obviously, we all have the same customers at some point. Why is it that more real estate agents aren't learning about probate bonds, sharing with their fiduciaries and their attorneys information?
Well, Bill, I guess I have to lend you a compliment on that, to answer that question. Is most real estate agents are not involved with probate as often or as in detailed amounts as some agents might be. Like you do a lot. I guess probably the majority of your clients might involve probate in some way. And from what I've run across, most agents are real estate agents are not really focusing on probate. It might be something incidental that they run across a couple times a year, but they're not dealing with folks day in and day out. So I think that's a big reason that probate bonds are away from real estate. I just think the time that the real estate agent is involved versus when a bond is needed, it just doesn't always, usually your real estate agent is going to come well after a case has even been filed in court. Until families start to think about selling, they're not even talking to a realtor.
Right. And yet when they decide they want to get approved, they're going to need a bond, right? You can't sell the house in many cases without the letters. You can't get the letters in most cases without the bond. And so, they can think they're going to do what they're going to do. And they often get tripped up by the little things. And one of the little things can be the bond process. And so if you can help unlock that early, that creates, rather than just telling people how you're the expert, you can actually show them just by asking a couple questions about the bond, and then turn them over to you, I guess, if they have any real questions on how they actually turn it into business. Um, so I'll put you on the spot a little bit, but I want you to be honest. I want you to feel free to say no. If a real estate agent in another state, particularly the states that you're home in, again, Ohio, Indiana, Arizona, Florida, and I forget the fifth.
Michigan and Ohio. Yeah.
Michigan. Michigan, Ohio
That's good.
are rivals, and then Indiana's nearby there, and then Arizona and Florida is my home away from home. I just got back from it. So if you're in those states in particular, if a real estate agent called you and said, "Hey, I'd like to just do a short interview with you about the bonds to share with my attorneys or my future um, uh, prospective personal reps," is that something that you would do, or have you done that before? Has anybody called you to do that before?
And specifically to help, I'm sorry, just
Just
recap
to interview
what
you about and just talk like we did here. If a real estate agent called you, wanted to do I mean, I know you've been very gracious to come on here. And for those who are listening, I'm not paying Phil. not getting any money from him. I'm not paying him beyond. He's just a nice guy. And I called him a couple years ago and he said yes. And I called back because I think he's just a great guy. I want to share. But if a real estate agent called you and wanted to do a similar 5 or 10 minute video interview about bonds and maybe more a deep dive on their particular state, what requirements and what offerings you have, is that something that you'd be able to do?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll extend that beyond our 5 states. I'm happy to have a conversation with any realtor or attorney or bond principal or fiduciary in any state. They're welcome to call, and I'm happy to give them my opinions. A lot of times I'm going to pre-qualify myself when I'm having those conversations and let you know these are my opinions. So I'm not
Right.
an attorney. I can't give you financial advice or real estate advice, but I'm happy to share what my experiences have been in probate or bonds or that sort of thing. Absolutely.
And I think for those, and my point is, to those of you listening on the call or listening replay, this is an opportunity. We all, as real estate agents, know we need to reach out to our customers. They're all starved for content. What do I do? What kind of content? Well, here's one. Phil's the easy guy to talk to, as you can see. And I would just urge you all to help promote your business by asking questions and then get very specific in your state about what offerings he has and doesn't have. Leave those out and focus on ones that he does have, so you can really be of value to your attorneys. And that way, when you make the referral, you can also send the video and say, hey, I also did an interview with him where he talks about these in details. And it's going to help pre-sell you and pre-sell Phil as the vendor in those cases. So I would urge everybody to try to take advantage of that and his generosity. Okay, so how has the real estate market overall, is off, in sales by 30% or more, which means overall there's less business for real estate agents. Some are doing well, some are not doing well. The average is off by 30%, obviously. In my case, I think I'm doing it the same as I did last year. I'm tracking on kind of the same numbers. How does the change in the real estate market affect your business, or does it affect your business as far as the probate specifically?
Well, a few things there to comment, Bill, and we're back to how dedicated you are and how much you care, and I can see that as well. So I would venture to say that your sales are not going to go down. They're going to go up even in a climate where others are going down because not, again, many vendors just don't quite get it. They don't know right from wrong, in my opinion, and you do. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But directly, other than the thing that affects our business more than that would be the aging population. So it's not necessarily real estate market, good or bad. It's when we're dealing with probate, it's when folks pass away or they need
Right.
guardians or that sort of thing. And for better or worse, that's only going to get more busy in the next 20, 30 years as our population ages,
Yeah.
including myself. So it'll
Yeah.
be uh, me sooner or later, or everyone that'll have to deal with that.
Yeah, and the way I did, thank you for the answer. And I think the same as mine. I would say I would describe it as it's, my wife one day said, "Well, you're really lucky that in a declining market, your business isn't dropping because people are dying at increasing numbers, not lower numbers." The downside is that it's an attractive niche that's attracting a lot of new competitors. And what I find are people who jump in and spend a day or two trying it and they realize it's hard. And I will say, I do feel like I work maybe twice as hard for the same business, twice as hard for maybe a little more business, knowing that in the long run, when the market turns around, I'll benefit from it. So I don't mind it. And I think that if you enjoy what you do, then working harder isn't a bad thing. It just is what is. Imagine, the Yankees or Dodgers last night. Is it harder to strike the guy out? Is it harder to get the hit? Yeah, but you're still playing the game. You might as well play and play hard. And that's how I feel about our real estate and obviously meeting vendors and talking and learning about their business and then bringing that back to my clients is really what I do. And I would urge everybody on this call to do as well. Okay, so last thing I wanted to kind of cover is just as a general business practice, I think that you do I got a hand up there. Let me get Bernie first, and I'll go back to my question. Bernie, let's bring you in. How can we help you? What do you got going on?
Yeah, thank you, Bill and Phil. Phil, I would like a little more help in understanding when are the bonds required in a probate? Always, or when there's contentiousness amongst potential beneficiaries, or in California, of course, we have limited and full authority. Is it more in limited authority? Just some guidance on when does the judge decide a bond is required?
Sure, happy to answer you, Bernie. Thank you for the question. And that's going to be so state specific and jurisdiction specific that it would be really hard to answer. I'm happy to answer in the jurisdictions I'm familiar with. But California has a lot of very different procedures that most states don't have.
No way. No
Yeah,
way.
there's many things in California that are just so off the different than what I might be familiar with.
No.
But
No,
yeah,
tell me it's
to
not
answer
true.
your question, yeah, for better or worse, right, Bill? No, that might be a different podcast. I'm happy to join you. Uh,
I do
the
that one too, by the way. I have that podcast too, but that's another one. Yes, thank you.
Good, I might join you. Let me know. We'll talk politics. I'm not here though. But as far as the bonds go, in our state, the bond is set by court rule. So the bond specifies if the estate meets certain criteria, that's going to require a bond of 2 times the value of the estate. And that is, just right in the court rules. Now, the caveat to that is in some of the larger counties, like our home county, we might have 30 different magistrates. And each one of those magistrates, they are legally allowed to make orders, and they vary from what the court rules say. So even though the court rules say that, under these circumstances, you need a bond, we very often have magistrates order bonds in excess of what's required, or sometimes they'll waive a bond when I would think it would be needed. So that's, so specific. Now, you mentioned disputes. We've had more and more disputes lately. It's been probably going up to about one a week I'm getting now, is states with disputes are almost impossible to bond. So once any member in that estate disputes something and it's on the record, a bonding company is almost always going to require a waiver from all the people in the estate before they'll issue that bond. So then, a lot of times folks ask, well, why does the bonding company get to decide who qualifies? Why the court just ordered this bond? Why isn't the bonding company issuing the bond? The court ordered it, and that's when we go back to qualifications and risk of being payable on the bond. So when there are disputes, it's almost like buying a claim. You know that there's a much better possibility of a bond claim coming in when you're working on an estate with a dispute. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, that's very helpful, Phil. It does. I thought the bonds came into play when it was a dispute. Now you're letting me know that it's really almost impossible to get a bond when there's a dispute. So that really does answer my question. Thank you.
Since so much
Sure.
of our audience is California based, let me give a little more specific California information as well. Again, not legal advice, but business advice, which is if you read the probate code, you're going to find and hear the judges say that there are cases where the bond can be waived if it's waived in the will. So wills are properly written will say that they'll allow, the bond to be waived. And if it's there and the bond, the will appears to be in good order, oftentimes the judge will accept that as a way to waive a bond because they've already identified who they want to manage the will, the estate, and the will anticipated that properly. Absent that, I think almost every case in California, Phil alluded to the kind of the minimum, and in California, I think it's a $20,000 minimum, which costs $100 or $200, whatever. But there's the paperwork involved, and some people don't qualify, and so sometimes we need the attorney to sign on the bond to get it approved, or other issues, or multiple underwriters take it back to, the bond company rejects it. Well, that's when you could call Phil and say, hey, this one was rejected. Can you help us out? Maybe a second set of eyes on it. We'll get a minimum approved. And then in California, we often need, the standard bond is for the estimated amount of the assets based on the application of the petition. And so, if you have a house in California, that could be, $500,000, $1 million. That gets to be a fairly expensive bond for somebody who may not be credit worthy. And that's really where this comes in California as an issue. And even though the court will say, well, you want to apply for full authority, fine, require a bond, and the judge says they have to have a bond. But as Phil said, that doesn't mean the bond companies will bond it. They'll tell you, go find another bond company. We don't want to do it. And so that's where sometimes cases come back as needing full authority, because either the petitioner isn't bondable and they don't know a way around that, which is our job, or second, there's an objection filed, in which case you can't get the bond, and the court authority in California would be limited authority. And then, so instead of needing a bond, the court's is gonna monitor every check basically, so there's nothing happening with that money. So that's kind of brief overview in California.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bernie. Thanks so much for jumping in and being a support. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask you about, because I do know your home state was Ohio. I know that you've pushed a little bit more of your business by percentage out. One of the things I've noticed, to go back to the issue of, market, maybe even though it's growing, being more competitive, one answer to that is expanding your geographical base. And I know there are a lot of businesses that have done that. I know in California, so many of our businesses in California have to operate in other states because it's so hard to operate in California. I know as a real estate agent, I've really built a national platform. I get referrals from my network across the country. Talk a little bit about, where are you on that process? Are you looking to grow geographically? Is that a key part of your business? Is that just something that organically happens for you? Is that something that you're pushing?
I'm definitely looking to grow and add states and jurisdictions where we can write bonds. I'd say that most bonding agents and insurance agencies are geographical in nature. So when they're marketing to California or LA or that sort of thing. And those companies, they offer a wide plethora of different products. So I've taken a little different approach, and where I like to concentrate in probate. We will do all sorts of surety bonds, any fidelity or surety bond available that you need in the United States, we have. We have special products for, like Florida has a professional guardian program. We have the lowest price on those bonds, and adding those additional states allows me to continue focusing on the specific probate market. So that's why we're looking to add more states, and why we've built the partnerships with, for instance, the national referral bonding that we can do. So,
And again,
yes,
I know that, again, for those listening, I want you to think about this for your business. Here's a successful business person who's done well for a period of time, who's telling you that he's pushing out geographically as a way to expand his opportunities. I think as we as realtors have to think about that as well, whether you're just in your local market, how to expand within the state you're licensed in, how do you do business in multiple states. I'm with eXp Realty. We can do business nationally through referrals. In a commercial business, we can do business nationally as well. So this is something we need to be thinking about. And that's why I built my probate business, to be honest. The way I did was because I realized that many agents can't do probate effectively because it's so spread out geographically compared to regular real estate. You have somebody who died in LA, but he owned property in Orange County, maybe in Northern California, maybe Nevada. How do I create value, and then how do I get paid for as much of that as possible? And the answer is to think about building your business. And Phil's been a great example of that. I kind of watched what he's done and try to copy some of those best practices. So thanks so much. Okay, well, I think we're kind of at the end here. Just a real quick recap. This is Probate Weekly. We do this every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 noon, live on a Zoom call. Love to have you join us. Register at probateweekly.com. All you need is your email address. You'll get an email with a Zoom link every week. If you scroll down, you can also subscribe on the various audio formats, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and such. And you can see the past episodes on YouTube if you're interested. We continue the conversation on Facebook. Our Facebook group is Probate Weekly. You can go there and join that group, put in your email address, and then you can post your content. So a way to get more views, more likes, more engagement, as well as to learn. Other content is focused there. I am now approved and a regular on KGCI Radio on the Air. You can go to KGCI Radio on the Air either online on your browser, or they have now a Apple and Google application. You can go search for KGCI Real Estate on the Air, download the app, and you can listen to great content 24/7. Our guest today is Phil Pavarini. He is an expert in probate bonds. I was scrolling down his content while I was talking to him because he has some really good posts. He has kind of an interesting sense of humor as well. So, but definitely go there and link up with him, but also take a look at his content that you can repurpose for your business. And lastly, our guest, Phil Pavarini, is at probatecourtbond.com. And he offered, if you reach out to him through the various social media channels and put the word in free lunch, for those of you who don't believe it, you can get a free lunch, right, Phil?
That's right. And right on that page you just had up, there's a button in the middle of that screen where it says send message. And that's right where you have to go, or any of our websites. We do have americassuretybonds.com, findsuretybond.com, and then the probatecourtbond.com. And each one of those websites, it is a different offering. So you will access a different market, so to speak, if you're looking for instant bonds or nationwide bonds or that sort of thing. Just reach out to me and I'll let you know where the best to apply is. But absolutely, I would love to send everyone who sends me that send secure message there and then puts in free lunch in the content, and we will send you a gift card within a day or two.
Fantastic. Well, Phil, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. Appreciate seeing all the progress you've made since the last time we talked. Thanks for all you do for the industry and for Probate Weekly and for our participants. Thanks so much for being on again today.
And thank you so much for having me, Bill. And look forward to next time. And I'll look forward to that invite on the political discussion.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you a link to that. So I do a weekly podcast on the real estate market, and inevitably in California, real estate is very political, whether it be our government helping squatters destroy real estate value, or limiting building new homes, or just in general attacking real estate agents in favor of online services. It's a regular topic I talk about, so I'll send you a link to that as well. So thanks so much, Phil. Appreciate it. For the rest of you, thank you so much for being on today. Probate Weekly. I'm Bill Gross at Bill Gross Probate, or billgrossprobate.com is the website. Love to help you if I can. Reach out, ask questions. If you go to that link down below, you can book a call, whether you're an agent looking for coaching. I don't sell coaching. I'd be glad to help you, give you some advice. If you're an attorney or a personal representative with some questions, feel free to reach out. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much. And thanks again, Brave, for your support.